Good afternoon. Love the game 24_7 family out there. How are you guys doing this afternoon? Smith. Love the game 24_7 podcast coming to you this afternoon. Real brief. Just want to talk about some things that happened went on this week in the world of sports. We got a lot of things happening. And definitely just hadn't been on for a little minute, been busy and getting some things organized. And I'll give you an update about that, on what's going on and what's coming up during the holiday break. Been doing a lot of refereeing in basketball now that football season has ended. And so I just want to thank you guys for joining the podcast. Appreciate you sharing. And I'm live right now on IG, YouTube, and Facebook, and I will be posting this on YouTube later. So I just want to thank you guys who think this information that I share is great information, and you view it and you share it and you get the word out. I see a lot of people sharing it. A lot of times, people that I know that have friends or family members that have a young athlete pursuing college sports, and have thrown my name out there. So I appreciate you guys and thank you. So if you think this information is great information, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Please hit that notification button, and be sure you get notified of when Love the Game 24_7 podcast with Coach Smith is coming on live, so you won't miss some great information out there on the recruiting trail for your young athlete, male or female. Just want to be sure that we give out great information that really will help your young athlete fulfill that dream of earning that scholarship that they desire. And so I just want to be sure I get back on doing my podcast and doing little videos. I got some things coming up here soon with some athletes I'm going to be interviewing that I've been helping, so that some of you young athletes out there can hear from your peers who are getting help from Coach Smith and Love the Game 24_7. I will be heading out to Dallas, Texas. We'll be involved with offense, defense, and their all-star game that will be happening from the 26th to the 29th for you young athletes in football. And hopefully you've registered and have gotten yourself signed up, and you're preparing to be out there in Dallas and Irving, Texas, in Dallas Cowboy Stadium for you middle school and high school age kids. And we're going to be also giving information out about the camps that will be coming up starting in January, February, March, and through the summer, with offense, defense, trying to help develop you young athletes in football, right? And so, and also if you guys are looking for a trainer in football, but also, as I've always shared, Love the Game 24_7 podcast with Coach Smith, we talk about recruiting is recruiting no matter what sport you play, whether you're male or female. Recruiting is recruiting. And this information that I give out, I may reference football, I may reference track and field because I did that as well growing up. I may reference, other sports, but it really doesn't matter what sport you play. All these things that I share apply to you as a young athlete that is trying to pursue and earn yourself a scholarship. And so, so like I said, I appreciate you guys joining me. So if you think this is a great podcast, you think this is great information, be sure, like I said, hit that notification button, that bell, so you'll be notified that whenever Coach Smith pops up, because I will be doing some live in Dallas and Irving, Texas at the All-Star game. I will be doing that and sharing, and hopefully get to do some interviews with some of the young athletes out there, because it's all about teaching them about how to interview, how to sell themselves, how to market themselves, that they're a great athlete and they're a hardworking athlete. And these are the types of things where college recruiters will definitely appreciate, to be able to get to know you better as a young athlete in your sport, when you can show how well you interview, how well you can convey, the type of person you are, the type of athlete you are. And then also when they see that being exemplified when you get on the playing field, when you come to their camps, or when you are at practice with your coach in your program in your middle school and your high school. And so it is very important to be able to show that to college recruiters that will help you in your recruiting process. So those are the things that I'll be providing and will be coming up. And today I just want to talk about briefly real quick, We got Bill Belichick, and we got Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy, right? So that was some great things that happened this week. There's some other things too that happened that I'll touch on that will go along with this topic. But today my topic was, like I said, Bill Belichick is the new head coach at University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Is this a great choice for both Bill and University of North Carolina? You know, that's something we got to think about. And then you also had Coach Rick Rodriguez, of who was the former coach at West Virginia back in my days, who they have brought back to be the head coach back at West Virginia, WVU again. And then you got Scott Frost, who was a star quarterback at University of Nebraska, and he went to UCF and then left UCF to go to his alma mater and coach at University of Nebraska. That's a hard job to turn down when you go back to your alma mater and really want to help them get their program back in the national prominence. But now UCF, since Malzahn is leaving, Coach Gus Malzahn is leaving as head coach at UCF, and he's heading to Florida State to take a offensive coordinator position at Florida State, because he's trying to help Florida State get back elevated because they're down, right? And so, because as I've always said, the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness is, equaled out some talent, and is going to continue to equal out some talent, no matter how much we, might not like it, some fans, but I love it, and I think they'll figure out this name, image, and likeness, and how this thing should work, and the transfer portal. But you got, you didn't hear a lot of news about, or it was big news with Rick Rodriguez and Scott Frost going back to their back to places where they coached before, because you had Bill Belichick, who never coached college football, and one of the most, if not the most successful NFL coach ever, with 8 Super Bowls. And he won 6 of those 8 Super Bowls just with the New England Patriots. So you're talking about somebody with his knowledge of the game and his relationships and his skill set, and just what he knows about the game. You young athletes out there now will have an opportunity to be coached, right? To be taught, to be trained by someone like Bill Belichick. But is it a great thing for both Bill and UNC? Well, to me, UNC has nothing to lose, right? University of North Carolina has never really been known as a football school. They've been more known as a basketball school, right? Michael Jordan. I can name a bunch of guys, but of course, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, you name it. There's a lot of well-known players that have come out of University of North Carolina, but for basketball, not football. Have they had some great football players? Absolutely, they've had some great football players, but that is not what they are known for at UNC Chapel Hill, right? That's not what Duke is known for, even though they have great football players come out of that program. Okay, so let's not fool ourselves, right? These are not football powerhouse schools that we're talking about. But Bill has a connection with UNC, with his father being a former coach there years ago, when he was a little boy growing up. And so we know that Bill didn't get a chance to get another job in the NFL. And it's not to say that even though he's going to UNC that he won't get a chance, because I doubt that he will be at North Carolina that long. And I'll get into more details about that. But I don't doubt that he will be an NFL coach to get that winning record, to beat Don Shula's winning record for most wins by an NFL coach. And he's not too far. I think he's like maybe 14 to 16 wins away from being the all-time winningest coach in NFL history to get Don Shula's record. But, like I said, is this going to be something good? Do we think Bill can coach college football? Hey, we know there's been a lot of coaches who never coached pro and were successful in college and made the transition. Nick Saban tried it, wasn't successful, right? Urban Meyer tried it, wasn't successful. Now there's other coaches that are great assistant coaches. Back in my day, I think it was not Gene Stallings I'm thinking of. I'm trying to think of Ray Perkins was a really decent coach at Alabama, and he tried to transition over to being head coach with the Buccaneers at the time when my brother was there. My older brother was wide receiver there as an undrafted free agent. And he was terrible as a head coach, great college coach, but terrible as a NFL head coach, because you can't necessarily coach pro athletes the same way you can coach college kids. It's not. It's just, it's two different animals. You're dealing with grown men. It's probably in most cases making more money than the head coach when you're talking NFL. We're at that point now somewhat with the name, image, and likeness. However, still it's different when you talk about age and experience with these young athletes. And, Bill, as a head coach, you can have some control, over that more so than you can in college than you can with the NFL. Now, Bill was a GM or and ran things as a GM and a head coach because of his success in the NFL. He was allowed that leeway. He was given that opportunity to do that and was very successful in winning 6 Super Bowls. But we got to ask ourselves as a young athlete, okay, with Rick Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. I saw the press conference with Pat McAfee on his show. Pat McAfee is a former Mountaineer, right? And so is Geno Smith, former Mountaineers, right? And so, Pat McAfee talked a lot about the things that they, the tough coaching that he got from Rick Rodriguez, and they were very successful, almost won a national championship during his time there, okay? And so you're talking about young kids. Now, I know there's a lot of money being made, but hey, these coaches can not give you that much, and you can go somewhere else that may not give you the opportunity to be successful to get to the next level that you desire to get to. Okay, so what I'm talking about today is for every young athlete, no matter what sport, but it's just talking about football today because of a big name like Coach Bill Belichick going to UNC Chapel Hill to do some big things at University of North Carolina. And then, like I said, you got Rick Rodriguez going back to West Virginia and Scott Frost going back to UCF, right? Which I think he should have never left. But hey, when you can get a chance to go back and coach at your alma mater, like University of Nebraska, it's kind of a hard situation, a job to turn down, right? So I can't necessarily fault him for that. But I think the things that he was doing at UCF before he left to take the job at Nebraska, he was heading down a road that he would have really elevated UCF to be a powerhouse. And no doubt he may be able to do that same thing again. And so what I want to ask you young athletes, even though, like I said, we're talking football, but just think about this in any sport, big name coach, young lady in your sport with, in basketball or volleyball. I know I was watching some of the volleyball briefly a little bit yesterday because they're down to the, to the tournaments in volleyball and getting to the national champion. So I think I'll be hitting some of that today, just getting a little look at that as well. But you got to ask yourself, young athletes, when you hear something like a Bill Belichick, a big name coach, right, coming into a program, would you be interested in playing for a coach like Bill Belichick in college, right? Let's elaborate on his history, on Bill Belichick's history in pros, right? Let's talk about this a little bit. He has a history of being strict and holding his players, right, to a high standard that brought his NFL teams great success. As I said previously, he's won 8 NFL Super Bowls, 6 championships at New England Patriots alone in his 20 plus years there. So, parents, I know there's some dads out there's some moms out there who may know football, who follow NFL, because there are some moms out there, some parents out there, right? Some grandmas, some aunts, some uncles, okay? And you got a nephew, right? Or you got a niece that's playing basketball or lacrosse, and they got a chance to play for a legendary coach in their sport. You got to ask yourself, you got to, look at Coach Belichick's history and see, hey, am I the type of player that can handle that? Because I know good and well, if I had a son coming out right now and he was a very good athlete, we would be looking at University of North Carolina. We would be looking at West Virginia with Rick Rodriguez. I would be looking at UCF with Scott Frost. But most importantly, I would be taking precedence. UNC would take precedence. Even though they're not a football powerhouse, you have Bill Belichick, one of the best football minds. Okay, that if your player, if your young person has a chance to go play for someone like a Bill Belichick, you best to believe that if I had a son or a daughter that have the opportunity to go potentially play for a legendary coach, right, whether they're a female coach in basketball or volleyball or softball, or soccer, or like I said, softball or baseball, legendary coach, right? And you got parents. That's why I tell you, you got to prepare your kids for some tough coaching. Because Bill Belichick, if you got any young person out there now that's considering going to UNC, right, and playing for Bill Belichick, you're going to have some strict guidelines, right? And you got to ask yourself, young athlete, can you handle that kind of coaching? Can you handle that kind of strictness, right? Because he has a high demand, because he wants some high success, and he knows the recipe. He knows the plan. He's going to put a plan together. But it's always got to be if you're willing to have a like mind, right, to get on board with the coach's plan. You just can't come there with just your plan. And so when you take your trips, or you get an opportunity to sit down in front of a Bill Belichick, as a parent and even as a player, young athlete with a legendary coach, you better ask a lot of questions. You better make sure you do your homework. You need to do that anyway, right? Whether it's a Bill Belichick or anywhere you're considering going, you better do your homework anyway, right? And we'll get more into that. But you got to ask yourself, young athlete, can I handle this type of coaching? Would I be able to handle this type of coaching from a Bill Belichick? Because if you follow football, right, you know Bill Belichick is somebody who was real strict on pro guys. He wasn't military type, but but you hear a lot of guys say how much Bill was a great, outside of being on the football field and whatnot, when they did things as a team, away from the football field, it's that Bill Belichick is one of the best, most fun coaches to be around. And he was always he was a participant. He wasn't, you probably would think Bill Belichick wouldn't like having fun, but that's far from the truth. From when you hear some of his players talk about some of the things that they would do as a team in events and gatherings, on how much Bill was like one of the first ones ready to have some fun and let loose, right? But when you got into that building, right, now he didn't just let guys go willy-nilly outside of football with their lifestyle and social media and all those different things. He still had some guidelines and held guys to that. But there were some guys that could handle that type of coaching, because when they saw him outside of the football, now he can let his guard down. I don't think he's letting his guard down. I just think he just wanted to let his guys know, hey, I'm still a real person, even though I'm a strict coach. I still like enjoying myself and having fun. But when it comes to taking care of business, Bill Belichick is going to be strict on you. He's going to be tough. So how did you choose if you want to go to some place like UNC with legendary coaches, like Bill Belichick, or a legendary college coach and Rick Rodriguez, right? And a coach who has a potential to be legendary, and Scott Frost going to UCF, right? Is this the right place for me? That's what you have to ask yourself, right? You better ask somebody, okay? When you go on these trips, on these visits, when you go to camp, all right? When you go to these camps, you better learn, young person, parents, you all better learn to ask some of these questions, because you're turning your young person, your young lady, your young man over to these coaches, right, to help mold and shape them. So you better ask somebody, right? You better ask some other parents of some kids that are already there at that particular institution, okay, that you can potentially reach out to, right? You can follow these kids on social media. You can get connected, or when your child goes there on a visit and they're being highly recruited at a certain school, I don't care if it's Division II or FCS Division I or FBS Division I, doesn't matter. You better get, if these are several schools that your young athlete is very excited about potentially getting a scholarship, there are some players on that team that are going to be able to connect with. And you want that your young person, your young athlete, to make that connection, and you want to be able to potentially reach out to a parent and ask, what's going on. So you better ask somebody. All right, that was an old saying that we used to say back in the day. You want to know some things, you better ask somebody. Okay, so do your homework. Okay, don't just get all your head in the clouds because you're getting recruited by a legendary coach like Bill Belichick. Yeah, you ought to be proud, right? You ought to be appreciative that somebody like him is recognizing you and wants you to come play for him, because you better believe he's going to do his homework. Most of these coaches, they do their homework on you, okay? But you best believe somebody like Bill Belichick is going to take it to another level. So if you're a young athlete out there and you may have the chance to go out there, it's just the same way as it was. I can see Bill taking that same level to the UNC Chapel Hill football like they do basketball in North Carolina, okay, in Duke, right? Because they didn't mess around. Basketball is legendary at these institutions at North Carolina, right? And Bill Belichick is the type of person who probably wants to make um, UNC legendary, right? And like I said, I don't doubt that he's going to get a chance to go back and break that all-time winning record in NFL. Somebody's going to hire him again. Bill Belichick didn't just take this job because he wants to just coach college. He has a plan. You better believe he has a plan. Okay, and and his plan is to get back to the NFL, because if you do your homework and go look at his contract, it's only a 3-year contract, right? And so I know some parents may be saying, "Man, he's only going to be there for 3 years." It doesn't matter, okay? Because the plan is to have his son take over, right? So that's why I said you got to do your research, right, and find out if this is the right place for me. Okay, just Bill being there for 2 years, hey, that's good enough. But to say he's going to have his son, take over, that's the plan. That was one of the things that took this agreement with UNC some time to get worked out, because Bill plans to be there 3 years and help him get this program kicked off. As I said, his father used to coach there. I think his father was a running back coach or something at UNC when he first got into coaching. So Bill is looking at this as a historic thing to help his son potentially help him get this program started off on the right foot. And then after 3 years, and Bill gets an opportunity to probably get back in the NFL again, and his son takes over this program, who's been coaching with his dad. And hey, you can call it nepotism, all that stuff, all we want to. That's what we should be doing as fathers or parents anyway, right? If we have the opportunity, we should be doing that, right? We should be trying to set our kids up, but we don't want to just give it to them. We want to make them work and earn, right? Put their time in, their blood, sweat, and tears, and learn. Hey, just take the work. Okay, and I'm not just going to hand it to you, but I want to help teach you and mold you and shape you, so when you do take it over, you don't run it in the ground, but you have a vision for it, so you can take it to another level from where mom and dad had it, right? And so this is what Bill is doing. LeBron doing it for Bronny. We don't know how long Bronny's career is going to be. I know he's had 2 great games in the G League recently, but hey, hats off to LeBron doing something like that, right? More and more of us need to be doing that. And there are people who are doing it. We just don't know about it. We don't hear about it because they're not in the limelight. And that's cool. You don't need to be, right? As long as you know you're handling your business, setting your children up for success, right? To carry on the legacy and even, make it even bigger and put their own stamp on it, right? So, like I said, you got to do your homework. When you choose to go to a program and you're going to be with a legendary coach like a Bill Belichick, you better make sure you do your homework and get an idea. And I think it's a great, situation where he's going to be setting his son up. And you may be asking yourself, why would I want to go there if I got to play 4 years? Hey, you as a freshman coming in next year under Bill Belichick for 3 years, if you're good enough after 3 years, you can declare to go to the NFL after 3 years. You don't have to stay there for 4 years if you're good enough, right? And then you got to ask yourself, someone like Bill Belichick, with his knowledge and experience in the game, his relationships that he has in the NFL and various other, things as well, his name carries weight. And if Bill Belichick is going to give you a stamp of approval for the next level, what do you think is going to happen, with you getting an opportunity to go to the next level, right? Or, whatever sport you're playing with a legendary coach, when the pros come asking. So Bill Belichick's names carries weight, right? You got to look at people who he coached. Lawrence Taylor in his days with the New York Giants. Of course, everybody knows Tom Brady, but there's a lot of players in between Lawrence Taylor and Tom Brady that were great players as well, right? That are doing great things and having opportunities on TV and making a great living for themselves because they're on great and successful teams. So you got to look at those kind of things, okay? And so his name carries weight, right? The people he'll be able to bring in to talk to your young person, right? The Tom Brady's, right? The Gronks, right? And Wes Welker, right? You got a bunch of guys I could call, that came through that program when Bill Belichick was there. Just like what D.R.I.V.E.N is doing at Colorado. D.R.I.V.E.N's name carries weight, right? It's a stamp of approval. D.R.I.V.E.N has earned that reputation, just like Bill has earned his reputation. That when they speak on about someone being able to play this game, right? That means that's a huge stamp of approval that there shouldn't be any reason. And as a young athlete, I'll be doing everything I can to get that stamp of approval. I'll be trying to ask them everything I could possibly ask them to be sure I become the player that I believe I can become. Right. And so, like I said, their names carry his name. These people's names carry weight, and the knowledge and information that they have about the game to help make you a better player, make you a better athlete is what you have to look at. And I'm talking to you, young ladies out there as well, when legendary coaches in your sport, well-known coaches in your sport, doesn't matter. So this information, can help you as well in whatever sport you're pursuing, young lady, right? Young man, I don't care if it's track and field. There's some legendary track coaches. And man, if I had, if one of my two grandkids that are growing up right now, or have a strength in track and field, I'm looking for these legendary coaches or people that they've coached that are now taking over their programs and making that name for themselves and becoming legendary. I want to get them into that. Right. So I got two grandbabies. I'm looking forward to doing what I did for my two boys, be involved and helping them if they're in the sports, making sure that they have them opportunities to go to the next level. As I said, I have a son is current NFL athlete, right? So I think I can speak from, a subject matter expert in this about recruiting, going through it myself and following my two older brothers and then having my son go through it and being a coach myself. I think I'm a subject matter expert when it comes to these things. And so I think there's some great information because everybody was talking this stuff about, oh man, is this a right move for Bill Belichick? Is it going to hurt his legacy if he doesn't go and do some great things at UNC Chapel Hill? Well, he's going to be very particular about the young people he recruits, that he feels he's been around this game longer than most of us have been alive. And so he knows what type of player, what type of mindset that a young athlete needs to have that he can coach. And they're going to do their homework. And guess what? I'm going to do my homework as an athlete. And like I said, it doesn't matter what level I go play at, play my sport. I'm going to do my homework, and you guys got to learn to do your homework. Okay. This is a big deal. Okay. So be sure you young athletes out there are aware of what you need to do. Okay. In your sport. And let me try to get this stuff together. My camera phone it's doing something kind of funky, but matter of fact, let me sign off on the camera phone and come back on. Hold on, guys. All right, I just want something went kind of crazy with my camera phone, so I'm back on live. I want to sign off and sign back on. So hopefully you guys on IG jump back on as I fix that issue. But like I said, I don't want to keep you too long. But like as I was saying, as an athlete, you need to watch, those schools that are heavily recruiting you. You need to watch those players at your position, right? You need to try to give yourself an idea of what kind of need that these schools are recruiting you at your position. They have at your position. Okay. And you need to be pursuing those schools where you feel like they from what you're watching based on your talent and ability in your sport, right? That you can go help a program because what you're seeing on the field, hey, you feel like, hey, I can do just as good, or no, not just as good, but better in helping this program because this is a school that I like. This is a school I'm very interested in. This is a program or degree that I'm very interested in, but I like their sports program because maybe you've been around it. Maybe you had a family member or someone, that attended at this particular school. And this is where you want to go pursue your opportunity to play college sports at whatever level it may be. Okay. And so you got to be sure that you are watching regularly. And I'm going to talk more about that when I get on Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy last night. And you'll understand what I mean by this comment about watching these schools that you're interested in your sport, looking at those players and looking at who's graduating, right? Whether you're transferring from another college, you need to do the same thing. If you're in the transfer portal, and this is what you need to be doing if you're in high school, right? Looking at what players are leaving, what players are heading out the door, right? That are graduating, that are graduate students or seniors, right? So you need to be paying attention to these things when you're getting recruited, these are some questions you need to ask. And don't think there's something wrong with you asking. No, you need to ask these questions. Coach, how many receivers you got on your roster? Okay, who are the seniors and graduate students? How many of them graduating or leaving as I come in, right? Because you need to know if this was worth your time, right? Because and you need to tell coach, hey, coach, I don't want to waste your time, and I know you probably don't want to waste my time, but I'm coming in looking to make an impact. Okay, I mean that was my mindset coming out of high school. Even as a freshman, I'm like coming from where I came from in Florida because of being in the climate that we live in many sports, not just football, but football is huge, of course, in Florida, and baseball, even basketball. But because of our climate, we can participate in those sports a lot longer, outdoors and someone in Iowa, Nebraska. I'm not saying you don't have great football players in other places, you do, but overall, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, California, of course, Texas, North Carolina, you because of our climate, we can be outside a little bit longer. We can help improve our skills, right? We can, that's why some of these states were so strong, back when I was growing up, and they still are. But now things are getting more even because of the level of training and everything that we have now, the camps and things that they have more available now than they did when I was growing up to help elevate talent, no matter where it is now. But these states that I mentioned are going to always be strong because of the climate level. Okay, and because of the time that we can spend and to continue to develop ourselves. And I remember my coach telling me, my junior year, my new coach telling me, he was like, man, when I recruit your area, I always found that you guys in this area were a little bit ahead, right, or considerably ahead of kids that I would recruit in other states, that weren't in those areas because you know, your knowledge of the game and the time that you can spend developing yourself was much more, we were much more ahead because we were always outside doing these things, right? You're not outside in the snow in Iowa trying to play football during the winter time. You're playing basketball, right? Or doing indoor track, right? But in Florida, we were still outside doing those same sports, football and basketball and all that, baseball, and still doing all those things and developing our skills. So that's why sometimes we were so far ahead, right? And my coach used to say that to me when I was in college. And I knew coming in my freshman year, man, I knew I had some good ball players I played ball with. It wasn't no joke, right? But I just knew because of what I grew up around, what I got to see, those ahead of me that would beat it into some of us, when we played against some of our older brothers and stuff that would teach us and had us ready. So when I went off to college, man, it was like, man, shoot, I know I'm playing some ball my freshman year. That was just my mentality, but it was also my work ethic, and I also respected my older teammates even in college. I learned stuff from them as well, but I knew there was a lot of things that I knew more or was much more developed than they were because of where I came from, because I could spend more time outside in developing my skills, and I did that, right? But today, we got indoor facilities up north. Hey, there's no excuse today. So you players out there in whatever sport you play, you better take the time to, to develop yourself, because it is a potential that you can be a high level recruit in your sport and go in your freshman year and make an impact. Okay. And you got to have that mindset and that work ethic, right? And so you need to know what players are leaving. Ask those questions. Don't hesitate to ask those questions, right? And so when you look at the value and wisdom of a Bill or any coach, like a Bill Belichick, what they can give you, for a player that you feel like you have what it takes, right? Who will or who wants to or who has a legitimate chance to play at the next level beyond college and make a good living for themselves. And you got the value of and wisdom of a coach like a Bill Belichick or Rick Rodriguez at West Virginia or Scott Frost, right? These guys weren't only great players, but they become or are becoming great coaches, right, at the college level, right? Bill Belichick, we know, has been a great pro coach and has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom about the sport that can help elevate your game, right? And as I said, if you're a legitimate person, playing for someone like those guys will help you get to the next level, right? And you may decide as a player to go into college um, or after your college career or pro career is over, because you play for someone like a Bill Belichick or Rick Rodriguez or Scott Frost or some other coaches that are very well connected, you may go into coaching at the college or pro level, right, in your sport, right? Because of that relationship that you built with your head coach. I always tell kids, man, always make sure you build a good relationship with all your coaches, right? The head coach, your position coach, your offensive coordinator, D coordinator, whatever sport it is you may be. You need to make sure you have that relationship, because you may decide to go into coaching, and because they know what type of person you are, and how focused you were and how dedicated and committed you were. They know, man, yeah, I think you might need to go in some coaching, right? Some of you athletes might go into coaching right when your college career is over and you were successful, and you just say, look, I'm done. I don't really care about playing at the next level, even if you have a chance. I had a teammate of mine in college. He had plenty of chances to go into the NFL, but he was done. He went into the military because that's what he wanted to do. All right. My late brother, D.R.I.V.E.N, Thomas, back home in St. Pete, that passed away several years ago. But D.R.I.V.E.N Thomas, man, you talking about a legend back home in the crib as a safety, just as an athlete. Daryl was a beast on the football field and on the track. We played college football together in track. He came out with my older brother, but I had the blessing of playing with my older brother and Daryl. He was like a big brother as well when I was in college, but he's from my hometown. You know, but he had several chances to play in the league, but he was done. So some of you all may feel the same way and want to go into coaching or whatever it is that you do. But when you have somebody like a Bill Belichick, as a legendary coach, right? And you got to ask yourself, man, hey, can I handle this coaching? Right? Can um, can I handle the strict or what a coach like Bill Belichick is going to demand from me? The focus, the commitment, right? To be great, right, on the field, or any legendary coach, or any coach that desires to be legendary and is building their resume, right? The coach at Indiana was great at JMU, James Madison. He built his reputation, winning reputation. He's building one at Indiana, right? And so you gotta ask yourself, especially when you got a legendary coach like a Bill Belichick that's coming on board, you better ask yourself, young athletes, if you want to be great, there's some things you're gonna have to give up. But I think it's a great opportunity for Bill Belichick. It's going to be awesome. Like I said, he has a 3-year contract. I know he'll eventually become the head coach again in the NFL team to get that winning record. I don't know if he'll win another Super Bowl, but I know he's a great coach. And I wouldn't, if I had a child coming out or a son coming out playing football right now that was coming through college, I definitely would consider UNC Chapel Hill where Bill Belichick is headed, because I know what kind of coaching, I know what kind of preparation. And I would tell my young athlete, hey, this is how it's going to be. And you need to be, and if you want to be great, here's a great person that can help you get to that next level. All right. Now, I had the blessing without having a legendary coach, and, having a son having the blessing of playing in pro. Right. And I just thank God for that, being able to do that. But man, I tell you, it definitely would make things a lot easier when you have somebody like a Bill Belichick who's well connected and knows the game. Okay. So enough about that. But like I said, you got Bill Belichick going to UNC Chapel Hill. You got Rick Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. And you got Scott Frost going back to UCF. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bill works these things out and how he deals with the name, image, and likeness situation. I know Shannon Sharp made a joke where Bill Belichick has that young 30-year-old girlfriend hanging on his arm. So, hey, Bill might feel like he can relate to the young people today. So with having a young girlfriend. So we'll see how all this plays out, but it's going to be great and exciting with college football next season when you have these 3 coaches and someone like Bill Belichick coming in. But I just wanted to get on briefly because I said I wasn't going to be long. You talk about Travis Hunter, a transcendent athlete, great young man. He wins the Heisman Trophy as expected, as I expected, and I think many of us expected, and I think he's well deserving of it. And so, but I know a lot of people, making this big deal about, Travis Hunter going both ways. Man, that's what we grew up doing. A lot of us grew up doing that, going both ways. I mean, it is what it is. It's nothing new. Um, I grew up having to do that same thing all the way up through high school before going to college. And if I needed to, I could have played cornerback and running back, and had did it, briefly. But I know one of my older brothers, he played both ways. He was a wide receiver and cornerback, just like Travis was, and was very heavily recruited in both positions, and did it in college. Now he's at a small D2 school. Now he led the nation in Division II as a wide receiver, right, and did great. And we had one of the top defenses in the nation in Division II, but we're at Little Morningside College, so you weren't going to hear about that. But definitely, I would tell you though, Travis is different. The young man is special. He's very humble. I'm excited for him. He's a great young man. He's very deserving of it. And I mentioned to you guys earlier about Bill Belichick being a strict, hard, and tough coach. A lot of you young athletes out there, you need to listen to how those who have gone before you, like a Travis Hunter, like a Caitlin Clark, okay, how they earned their success in any athlete in your sport earned their success, right? And how they achieved their success, what they, or high success, what they gave up, what they sacrificed, because you're going to have to be committed and you're going to have to sacrifice some things, right? And so some things you need to ask yourself, those ones like a Travis Hunter, what are they doing, or what did they do, or what did they not do, right? These are some things you got to ask yourself. Look at somebody like a Travis Hunter or Caitlin Clark or anybody else you can name in your sport, or in football or basketball, Steph Curry, Michael Jordan. Now, there's some things I don't think people have to give up, but there are certain things that everybody's going to have to sacrifice. And so there's some things you're going to have to do, and some things you're not going to be able to do, right? And when you have someone like a Bill Belichick, a Deion Sanders, going from 4 wins to 9, 10, 11 wins, whatever it is this year, and almost making the playoffs in 2 years, using the transfer portal and the name, image, and likeness, things that are out there and available to him, but in a short period of time, he's making this kind of impact. He has a strong recruiting class coming in with the number 2 athlete and the number 2 quarterback in the nation from out of Georgia that's committed to Colorado, and a lot of that has to do with Shador and Travis Hunter helping, with the recruiting, and as athletes, we all help with recruiting. That is nothing new. We all got into the recruiting game when coaches would send guys, and we're on our way out eventually. We all help with recruiting. Coaches always look for his top players to help with the recruiting when top recruits would come on campus, right? Now, trust me, I had to let guys know. I know you good, blah, 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 but you still gonna be behind a brother. So don't get it twisted. You doing it in a nice way. You're doing it in a competitive way. We're all competitive. So it wasn't anything that you did to be rude or disrespectful. No, you're just talking stuff to each other, and you should. It's healthy to do that. But hey, if an athlete comes in and they're good, like a Travis Hunter, hey, you may have to take a back seat, or be number 2. But he would have had some work to do if I was still playing. Trust me on that. I'm just being honest with you. He's a good baller, but I had some skills myself. I know that. And so did my older brother and many other guys I had the blessing to work with. But this kid is special, right? This kid is very special, and I'm excited for him. And and just listening to him, Travis would tell you there's a lot of stuff he didn't do. He didn't eat, right? He didn't go hang out, right? These are some, you got to ask yourself, what have they sacrificed? And am I going to be willing to make some of those same sacrifices? Well, guys and young ladies, you got to ask yourself, when Caitlin Clark has received the success she has, Travis Hunter, the Steph Currys, the Tom Brady's, and the Michael Jordans, and many others that you've heard about, the Jerry Rices, right? You have to ask yourself, the Kobe Bryants, hey, I'm going to have to make some of them same sacrifices, right? You may tell yourself, I ain't got to do all that. Okay, then you probably more than likely you're not going to win. You're not going to be as successful or as great as they are either. And especially if you have the potential, you know, but you got to have the work ethic, right? And it's not meant for everybody, you know. There's a lot of scholarships out there, so it's a lot of opportunities for a lot of you all to get scholarships to pay for your education, because that's the most important thing, how to get that education taken care of to where you're not going into debt, right? And the student loan debt, right? I got 25 years as a financial aid administrator, and there's a lot of people going into debt, okay, for their education when they could have played a sport or played an instrument and help pay for their education, or was a merit scholar in their academics. And we know everybody's not a merit scholar, but there's a pretty good number of people that can play a sport or play an instrument, right? So whatever your gifts and talents are, parents, you got to hone in on it. You got to get them some training. Sometimes it has to be outside of their school. You got to get that additional training, mental coaching, whatever it may be. Sometimes they don't want to hear from. Had to learn that. My sons didn't always want to hear from me. So let me get somebody else that is great and good at it, that they can, speaking to them as well, that I approved of, that help them elevate and be successful like they are now. Okay. And so you got to ask yourself, what did these great ones before me do? What were they doing or not doing? What did they sacrifice? Right? How big is their circle of accountability? Right? Shador and Travis, held each other accountable. I had teammates when I was in college, we held each other accountable, right? Because we wanted to be great. So get with a teammate that wants to be great and doing things that are heading down that way to be great, and you all hold each other accountable. Your circle has to be small; it can't be big, right? Because there's going to be some people that are mislead you, misguide you, and you got to have a small circle of people who think like you do, that want to do great things in your sport, want to make an impact into the program. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go pro. Like I said, some of you guys are going to go in coaching and be legendary coaches at whatever level you get an opportunity to be a coach. Right? And then some of you guys are going to go legendary and be pro athletes in the WNBA or NBA or MLB or NWSL, MLS, right? Or get a chance to go play over in Europe if you're good enough in soccer and football, European football. So how big is their circle of accountability, right? And Travis talked about what drove him, his father. He talked about his father wasn't able to be there for whatever reason. I don't know, don't need to know. But that was part of his motivation. His mother was there, right? His siblings, we talked about his siblings. That was another thing that drove him, right? That was his major motivation, right? And Deion Sanders and the family, welcomed him in, right? He became like a brother, right? And Travis talked about how his mom had to do what she needed to do to move him from Fort Lauderdale, Florida to Georgia, right? And as parents, you got to sometimes make those kind of sacrifices. His mom was willing to make the sacrifice. Well, guess what? Now her son will be able to bless her, right? He talked about how, Lil Wayne, connected with Deion, and how he said he never really even listened to music. So, the young man, there were certain things he just didn't do. He was focused. And it shouldn't be any surprise that he's having the success that he has. And there's other people that you don't even know about, but they did some of the same things and they had success and they made it to the pros. They may not be getting there winning the Heisman Trophy like Travis Hunter has, but they made it to the NFL. They made it to the NBA. They made it to the NHL. They made it to the MLB, and doing pretty good, putting that same work ethic in. Their name in their sport. And they may not be a name to me, you and I, or a household name, but when it comes to their sport, they are a household name in their sport. And some of them may transcend being a household name beyond their sport, like a Travis Hunter. That's great. You may or may not get to that level, right? But it doesn't mean you can't have success in your sport. And you still need to make them similar sacrifices that Travis talked about, right? There's some things he said he didn't eat. He wanted to take care of his body. He was thinking about his family, how he wanted to make a difference. Okay. And you got to put yourself around people that's going to help hold you accountable, or that you can go cry out to when you need some help, right? You can bounce some things off of. It's important to do that, right? And so, Travis kept his focus, right? He keeps himself, he said he keeps himself healthy. He's humble, right? I remember him talking about on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor on the pivot. I saw that interview, and he talked about Travis Hunter talked about how he you know, I think it was the last game he was going to be at this sports bar in Colorado, there in the area, and he was going to sign every jersey. And I remember finding that Twitter post, and everybody said he stayed there like an additional 5 hours because he wanted to keep his word about signing those jerseys, right? And he talked about, how that is important to him, the fans, and appreciating that. That's that humbleness that keeps you grounded, that keeps you focused, right? He talked about how he kept out the noise, right? And don't be drinking all the Kool-Aid, right? And so doing those types of things and being humble and signing all the jerseys, right? It helps keep you grounded. It helps keep you to know. It helps you show the appreciation. And so it was very refreshing to see that he held his word. Now, a lot of people talked about that's something that was real important to him, about keeping his word. And I saw on social media where he kept his word and he signed every jersey to the very last one. And I saw people make that comment saying, yes, he did what he said he was going to do. He stayed there like extra hours. I think someone said almost 5 extra hours to sign every jersey. That's important. So it's no surprise. It doesn't mean things are not going to be tough. Don't think things haven't been easy and it's going to always be easy for Travis. We're always going to have something we got to work through, even though we're having high success. There's always some things. That's why you got to have good people around you, right? And don't be drinking the Kool-Aid and keep that noise out. And then, you're going to have some lonely feelings at times and naysayers, right? But remember the plan. Genty, who was up for the Heisman as well last night, the running back. He was born in Jacksonville. His father is a military guy, so he played his football skills, got home in Italy. So some people probably try to say, "Oh man, you in Italy, you ain't playing ball in the state. How you good?" So I'm sure he got a lot of that. That's probably some of what he got, right? Because he played a lot of his ball skills were learned when he was overseas because his father was in the military. But then he grew up playing high school ball not too far from where my son lives, in Dallas, Texas area, at a high school there, and became very successful. And he talked about his vision board that he used to help keep him focused, to keep him grounded. And so some of you may need to take that type of step or mindset or game plan. Have your game plan and do your best to stick with that game plan and get around people who's not going to let you get off your game plan, but stick with your game plan. If you stick with your game plan, they're going to be ebbs and flows. They're going to be ups and downs. That's why you need good people. That's why you need to make sure you go to a program where you can go in and have a good relationship with your coach. My son had a great relationship with his wide receiver coach, right? Coach Gunnell or Gunner. I know I always get it mixed up, but Coach Gunner, I appreciate him to this day. He kept a good relationship with a lot of the players. A lot of the players appreciated Coach Gunner there at BC, at Boston College. He spoke into those young men's lives. It was real important to him, and it's always good. I did the same thing when I coached high school football. I had a certain relationship with certain players, because I saw, that I could relate to them and they would listen to me. And I want to be sure I guide them the right way. So you got to be sure when you're looking at these things, mom and dad, where they're going, you ask all the questions, whatever questions you can come up with, right? And you as a player, you better do your homework, young lady, young man, before you commit your 4 years. And I know there's some reason why some kids transfer. Some kids need to transfer. Not necessarily that program is bad. Maybe their time was up. Maybe a coach left. Not necessarily a head coach, maybe an assistant coach left that they had a strong relationship with. Okay. And it's great that we have the transfer portal that gives that opportunity for athletes. You just better make sure you do your homework. All right. And so I just want to take some of that time today, like I said, and talk about the Bill Belichick going to UNC Chapel Hill to try to turn this program around. And then his son take over after about 3 years. I think there's some great stuff about that. And you got Rick Rodriguez going back to West Virginia, Scott Frost going back to UCF. That should be great for UCF to get him back there in those doors there at UCF in Orlando. And then Travis, great young man, and all those guys. Even Cam Ward, I shared on a story about Cam Ward's comments. He went to Incarnate Word, lower level, I think Division II program. Right, he wasn't even recruited. Sometimes he said his dad wouldn't get called back from Division II or Division III programs. And to me, that's nuts. You know, a kid like him, how are you at a Division II school? And there's some very good Division II schools, but this kid is, you know, and maybe it took that type of experience to make him the player that he is, or that he's become. You know, and here he is from Incarnate Word to Washington State to University of Miami to being a Heisman Trophy candidate. Man, you can put that on your resume. Cam Ward can put that on his resume that he was a Heisman Trophy, considered he was in New York. That's huge. Okay, so that's why I try to tell you young athletes, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. Where did you end up? Were you willing to stay to your plan? Right? I didn't have the opportunity to have somebody to help me understand when I had an opportunity to transfer to K-State. When Coach Lovett asked me to consider that, you know, I didn't do it because of fear, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to do or how to deal with that whole situation. My concern was I didn't want to put my mother in a situation where she had to pay for my education. It cost her money. I believed in myself and knew that I would have probably earned a scholarship. You know, eventually I knew I could have done that. But that's why I love the game 24/7 with Coach Smith is out here, because I don't want you to be uninformed like I was uninformed and didn't take the jump, right? Like I, you could have. So that's why I'm here. I hope you hit that subscribe button. I hope you hit that bell, that notification button. So when Coach Smith goes live again and we come with some interviews with some of my athletes in high school that are getting ready to transition to college next year, I'm going to be interviewing them. So I got to meet with these guys and go over some things with them and help them out, and also try to put them on as I post these things on social media, because I have a lot of coaches that I follow, and a lot of coaches are following me in various sports. So I don't want to just interview football players. So if you're interested in wanting to interview with Coach Smith on the podcast, on Love the Game 24/7 podcast, I don't care if you're male or female or what sport. I don't care if you play lacrosse. All right, let's get you on here. Let's get you some exposure. Let's get you on here and talk about why a coach should offer you a scholarship to come in their program, right? On offering you and what you're going to do and what you have to offer that program, and why it's important for those schools that you're pursuing and that scholarship opportunity from, why they should sign you and offer you a scholarship. So let's get that done. So I look forward to hearing from you guys. Love the 247game@gmail.com is my Gmail email address if you're interested. And so I look forward to hearing from some of you guys. If you need a template, a professional email template, I sell those, as well as a player profile template. I sell those to help you gain exposure and teach you how to send emails and get responses from college coaches to help you increase your college scholarship opportunities. So I look forward to hearing from you. I'll be talking with you guys again soon. Have a blessed rest of the day and enjoy some football, volleyball, all the stuff that's on, basketball, NBA, NCAA, all great stuff. All right, guys, take care. Peace out.